Never skip this part of a cruise. It could quietly cost you hundreds of dollars. Gratuities or service tips aren't just optional thank yous. They're automatically charged. And if you don't understand how they work, your budget can sink fast. In this video, I'll break down the truth about cruise ship gratuities, where the money really goes, how to avoid tipping twice, and when extra gestures actually matter. Stick around because some of these insights the cruise lines will never tell you. You board your cruise, settle into your cabin, and think you've paid for everything up front. But by the end of the week, you check your account and, surprise, there's an extra $120, $150, or even more added on. Where did it come from? That's the daily gratuity system at work. And for many first-time cruisers, it's a shock. Here's why it matters. Gratuities aren't optional extras anymore. Most cruise lines automatically charge a daily service fee, anywhere from $14 to $20 per person per day. For a couple on a 7-day sailing, that can mean an additional $200 to $300 on top of what you already paid. And if you're traveling as a family, multiply that by every person in your cabin. Suddenly, your all-inclusive cruise doesn't feel so inclusive. The fix is simple. Know before you go. Check your cruise line's policy, because rates vary. Some lines allow you to prepay gratuities before sailing. This locks in the rate and helps spread out the cost. Others let you adjust or remove them at the guest services desk, though doing so is controversial since it directly affects crew pay. Either way, budgeting for these charges ahead of time keeps you from feeling blindsided mid-cruise. Here's the positive. When you understand the system, gratuities become less of a surprise and more of a way to recognize the hardworking crew who make your vacation smooth. From your cabin steward to the waitstaff, think of it as part of the cruise experience, not a hidden tax. But before you assume all that money goes straight into your waiter's pocket, think again. Because the next truth about gratuities might change how you see the system completely. You sit down for dinner, your waiter remembers your name, your drink preference, and even cracks a joke you'll laugh about later. At the end of the week, you assume those automatic gratuities go straight into his pocket as a reward for great service. But here's the truth. They don't. On most cruise lines, gratuities are pooled and distributed across dozens of crew members you never see. Yes, your dining team and cabin steward get a share, but so do behind-the-scenes workers. Laundry staff, buffet attendants, galley cleaners, even the dishwashers who keep everything running. That means the $15 to $20 per day you're paying doesn't directly thank the individual who served you. It supports an entire network of crew. And while that sounds fair, it also means you can't assume your favorite server is being fully recognized for their hard work. So why does this matter? Because it changes how you think about tipping. If you believe all the money goes to one person, you may feel less inclined to give extra thanks. But once you know the truth, you realize that a personal envelope of cash or a kind gesture can make a bigger impact for the crew who go above and beyond for you. The fix? Budget a little extra for those standout moments. Slip your cabin steward some cash on the last day, or thank a favorite waiter personally. Not only will it mean more to them than the pooled gratuity, but it also creates a genuine connection. And here's the positive. Pooling ensures that the entire team, visible or invisible, gets support. After all, your perfect cruise experience isn't just one person's effort. It's a village working behind the scenes. But what if you don't feel the service deserves the added cost? That's where things get tricky. And it brings us to the controversial topic of removing gratuities altogether. Halfway through a cruise, a frustrated passenger marches up to guest services. They're holding their bill, pointing at the daily service charges, and demanding those fees be removed. And here's the shocker. The staff agrees. Yes, on most cruise lines, you can reduce or even remove automatic gratuities entirely if you insist. So why does this matter? Because while the option exists, it's one of the most controversial moves a passenger can make. Those gratuities aren't just arbitrary numbers. They're the system that pays hardworking crew who often rely on tips as their primary income. When one guest pulls their charges, the financial hit doesn't just affect one server, it ripples across an entire team. For seniors who cruise frequently, knowing this dynamic helps you make an informed choice. Are you saving money at the expense of someone else's livelihood? Now, that doesn't mean you should never adjust gratuities. If service is truly poor, ignored requests, unclean cabins, or repeated bad experiences, you're within your rights to lower the amount. But for the vast majority of cruises, the crew is working tirelessly to make your vacation seamless, often with 12 to 14-hour days, 6 or 7 days a week. Cutting gratuities in those cases doesn't just punish one lazy worker. It punishes the entire system. The fix? If you're unhappy, consider addressing the issue with management first. Many times, problems are quickly corrected and your experience improves. If you do adjust gratuities, balance it with direct cash tips to individuals who did deliver excellent service. That way, you're still rewarding effort without cutting out the whole team. Here's the positive. Being intentional with tipping gives you control while still honoring the crew's hard work. And when you strike that balance, you'll feel better about your trip overall. But gratuities aren't just about daily service fees. Sometimes you're tipping twice without even realizing it. And that's the next trap passengers fall into. You order a cocktail by the pool, sign the receipt, and out of habit, you scribble in a few extra dollars as a tip. Feels generous, right? But here's the catch. On most cruise lines, an 18 to 20% gratuity has already been added to that drink bill. Without realizing it, you've just tipped twice. This happens constantly. Drinks, specialty dining, spa treatments, even certain room service orders all come with automatic service charges already built in. The problem? Cruise lines don't exactly shout this from the rooftops. Instead, the tip line is still printed on your receipt, quietly waiting for you to add more. Passengers who don't notice often double or even triple their tipping budget by accident. Over a week-long cruise, that could mean an extra $100 or more gone without you even noticing. Why does it matter? Because while it's always good to be generous, over-tipping blindly doesn't always benefit the crew. It just lightens your wallet unnecessarily. Seniors especially, many of whom cruise on fixed incomes, can end up spending far more than planned, thinking they're being kind, when in reality the system already covered it. The fix is simple. Read every receipt before signing. Look for service charge included or gratuity added. If it's already there, you can leave the tip line blank unless you truly want to reward exceptional service. Save those extra dollars for standout crew members instead of tossing them into the automatic pool again. Here's the positive. Being aware of built-in charges gives you freedom. You can tip with intention, rewarding the bartender who remembered your favorite drink or the spa attendant who went above and beyond, rather than paying extra by mistake. But drinks and spa visits aren't the only areas where tips matter. The crew member who makes the biggest difference to your cruise experience often works quietly behind the scenes. Your cabin steward. And that brings us to the next truth you need to know. It's late in the evening, you return to your cabin, and there it is, a neatly made bed, fresh towels, and even a little towel animal waiting to make you smile. For most passengers, this feels like magic. But behind the scenes, it's your cabin steward working long hours to make sure your room feels like home. Why does this matter? Because while daily gratuities do cover part of their income, those pooled charges don't always reflect just how much your steward does for you personally. Think about it. They clean your bathroom, tidy your room, sometimes twice a day, handle laundry requests, and often anticipate your needs before you even ask. For seniors especially, a kind steward who checks in on you or helps with small extras can be the difference between a stressful trip and a relaxing one. Yet many passengers assume the automatic charges are enough and never thank them directly. The fix? A small personal gesture goes a long way. On the last day of your cruise, slip your steward a cash envelope as a thank you, $10, $20, or whatever fits your budget. If cash feels awkward, even small gifts like candy, toiletries, or a handwritten thank you card can brighten their day. Unlike the pooled system, direct tips stay with them, and the appreciation is felt immediately. Here's the positive. When you take the time to thank your steward personally, you're not just boosting their income, you're strengthening the human connection that makes cruising special. Many passengers even build lifelong friendships with stewards who remember them on future sailings. But your steward isn't the only crew member who deserves recognition. Some of the hardest working people on the ship rarely interact with you directly, and yet your cruise wouldn't run without them. Let's talk about the overlooked crew members passengers often forget to thank. You watch a dazzling stage show at night, dancers, singers, lights, everything flawless. Or maybe your grandkids spend the afternoon at the kids club, laughing and safe under the care of patient staff. These moments feel effortless for you, but behind the scenes there are dozens of specialty crew members making them possible. And here's the kicker, many of them aren't included in the automatic gratuity pool. Why does this matter? Because overlooked crew members often work just as hard as the waiters and stewards you interact with daily. Think about the kids' club staff who manage energetic groups all day with smiles, or the entertainment techs, costume crews, and stage managers who work late nights to ensure you're wowed by Broadway-style performances. Even fitness trainers, guest activity hosts, and youth counselors rely heavily on recognition, but they don't always see a share of those daily service charges. Without passengers' awareness, their effort goes unnoticed, and their pay doesn't reflect their impact. The fix? Pay attention to the crew who go above and beyond outside of dining and housekeeping. Did a kids club counselor treat your grandchild like family? Slip them a thank you card with cash inside. Did a fitness instructor or trivia host brighten your day? A small tip or even a heartfelt note can mean the world. It doesn't have to be big. Sometimes $5 or $10 is enough to show you notice their work. Here's the positive. When you recognize these overlooked roles, you not only lift their spirits, but also create a ripple effect. Crew members often remember passengers who appreciated them, and you may get little extra perks or simply warmer connections throughout your trip. Quick note before we continue, if you're finding these insights helpful, give this video a like and subscribe so you never miss cruise advice that saves you money and makes your trip smoother. All right, let's keep going. Because tips don't stop at the ship's gangway, the next hidden gratuity mistake happens when you step ashore on excursions. You step off the ship in the Caribbean, ready for a day of adventure. A friendly guide leads your group through winding streets, shares local history, and makes sure you get safely back to the bus. By the end of the tour, everyone claps, thanks them, and half the group walks away without leaving a tip. For local guides, that's not just disappointing, it's devastating. Here's why it matters. Many excursion staff and local workers depend heavily on gratuities. Unlike shipboard crew who receive pooled service charges, local guides often earn low base wages. Your tip may be the difference between their day being worthwhile or not. And it's not just tour guides, bus drivers, boat operators, and even the staff helping you gear up for snorkeling or zip lining often rely on gratuities to supplement their income. Forgetting to tip them doesn't just hurt their pocket, it sends the message that their hard work went unnoticed. The fix is simple. Come prepared. Before you leave the ship, bring small bills in local currency or US dollars, which are widely accepted in many ports. A few dollars per person is often enough to make a meaningful impact. If you're traveling as a couple or family, tip a little extra to reflect the whole group. And remember, tips don't always have to be cash. A genuine thank you, paired with a few kind words, can make the gesture feel personal. Here's the positive. Tipping local workers not only supports them, but also deepens your cultural experience. Guides often go the extra mile for passengers who show gratitude, offering insider stories, photo opportunities, or special attention. But gratuities don't end with excursions. Back on board, another group of crew members quietly expects recognition, especially if you booked a luxury suite or extra perks. And that's where hidden costs really start adding up. You've splurged on a suite, the kind with a private balcony, priority boarding, and even a personal butler who brings champagne to your room. It feels like pure indulgence. Until the end of the cruise, when you realize your butler and suite staff expect additional gratuities on top of the daily service charges you already paid. That luxury suddenly comes with a hidden price tag. Here's why it matters. Premium cabins often include service levels far beyond standard staterooms. Butlers, concierge staff, and private dining attendants aren't always fully covered by the automatic gratuities built into your bill. In many cases, their income depends on direct tips from suite guests. For seniors treating themselves to a special occasion trip, an anniversary, a retirement celebration, this surprise can feel like being nickel and dimed after already paying thousands for an upgraded cabin. And skipping those tips can create awkward moments at the end of the cruise, especially if those staff went out of their way to make your trip unforgettable. The fix? Budget extra if you're booking luxury service. Research your cruise line's tipping guidelines in advance. Some publish suggested amounts for butlers and concierges, often ranging from $5 to $15 per day. Keep cash envelopes handy so you can thank staff directly. If you're unsure who should receive extra gratuities, ask discreetly at guest services before disembarkation. Here's the positive. When handled smartly, these tips don't feel like a burden. They feel like a way to personalize your luxury experience. A well-tipped butler might arrange surprise touches, reserve prime seats at shows, or make your special celebration feel even more memorable. But luxury isn't the only confusing area. Sometimes the biggest tipping surprises come not from the service itself, but from cultural expectations that shift depending on where and with whom you're sailing. It's easy to feel frustrated when you see service charges stacking up on your bill. But here's the flip side. Without the gratuity system, your cruise experience would probably look very different, and not in a good way. Here's why it matters. Gratuities provide stability for crew members who often work 7 days a week, months at a time, far from home. That steady stream of income ensures they can focus on serving passengers instead of constantly worrying about tips. It also creates fairness. Pooling gratuities means that behind-the-scenes staff like cleaners, laundry workers, and galley teams get a share of recognition even though you never see them. Without that, your cruise wouldn't run nearly as smoothly. And for passengers, the system has hidden benefits too. Because crew know gratuities are part of their income, they're motivated to deliver consistently high service. That's why your waiter remembers your drink order, your steward greets you by name, and everything feels seamless. In a way, the system ensures a higher baseline of care than you'd get at a typical hotel or resort. The fix? Instead of seeing gratuities as a gotcha, reframe them as part of the cruise culture. Prepay if possible so it feels less like a surprise charge. Then, use your extra tips to highlight individuals who really made your trip special. This way, you support the system while still personalizing your gratitude. Here's the positive takeaway. When everyone contributes, the crew is happier, the service is smoother, and you reap the rewards in the form of a better vacation. But not every passenger sees it that way. In fact, some travelers from around the world are shocked by the tipping culture, and that clash of expectations can lead to confusion or resentment. Let's talk about cultural differences. Picture this. A European couple boards their first Caribbean cruise. At the end of the week, they're shocked to find hundreds of dollars in gratuities tacked onto their account. Back home, tipping is minimal or non-existent, so they feel blindsided and even a little cheated. Meanwhile, American passengers don't think twice because tipping is deeply ingrained in their culture. Why does this matter? Because cruise ships are floating melting pots, carrying guests from all over the world. What feels normal to one passenger can feel outrageous to another. This cultural clash sometimes leads to resentment, complaints at guest services, or heated debates online. For seniors especially, it can create confusion if you've cruised mostly in Europe, then suddenly switch to a US-based line with heavy tipping expectations. If you don't understand the cultural context, you might feel like you're being taken advantage of, when in reality, it's just how the system is designed. The fix? Research before you book. Cruise lines based in the US, like Royal Caribbean, Carnival, and Norwegian, bake gratuities into the culture. European or luxury lines sometimes handle things differently, with tips included in the fare or set at a lower rate. If you know what to expect, you can plan ahead and avoid unpleasant surprises. And if you're sailing with friends from other countries, talk openly about tipping norms so nobody feels confused or pressured at the end of the trip. Here's the positive. Understanding cultural differences makes you a more confident traveler. Instead of being frustrated, you'll feel prepared and even appreciate how tipping systems vary worldwide. Plus, crew members always notice passengers who show respect for the system, no matter where you're from. But here's the big question. With all these details and hidden costs, how do you handle gratuities smartly without stress or overspending? That's where our final tip ties it all together. After all the confusion, automatic charges, hidden fees, cultural clashes, you might be wondering, what's the smartest way to handle gratuities without stress or overspending? The answer is strategy. Here's the truth. Most frustration around tipping comes from being unprepared. Passengers who ignore gratuities until the last day often feel blindsided by a hefty bill. But seniors who plan ahead find it's much easier and even rewarding to manage. The fix? Start before you sail. Prepay gratuities if your cruise line allows it. This locks in the rate, avoids surprise charges, and lets you spread the cost out instead of facing a lump sum at the end. Then, budget a small envelope of cash for extra recognition. A few $5 or $10 bills are perfect for standout moments. Your steward who remembered your preferences, the waiter who made you laugh, or the kids club counselor who gave your grandkids a safe, fun day. Here's the positive. Handling gratuities intentionally turns them from a stress point into a way to personalize your cruise. Instead of feeling nickeled and dimed, you'll feel like you're investing directly in the people who make your vacation special. Crew members often go the extra mile for passengers who show thoughtful appreciation, meaning you're not just giving, you're also enhancing your own experience. And when you return home, you won't be left grumbling about hidden charges. You'll feel good knowing you budgeted wisely, supported the crew fairly, and kept control of your spending. So the smartest way to handle gratuities, plan, prepare, and personalize, do that, and instead of feeling tricked by the system, you'll master it and enjoy smoother sailing every time. Thanks for watching. Now you know the truth about cruise ship gratuities and how to handle them smartly. If you made it this far, type "smooth sailing" in the comments so I know you're part of the savvy crew. And if this video helped, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss tips that save you money and stress at sea. Here's to fair tipping, smoother sailing, and unforgettable cruises. See you next time. Here's the silver lining.